Abductee is not your typical horror film. It's not a creature feature. It's not a movie about a woman being chased in the woods by a monster. It's a psychological thriller that focuses on the emotional trauma that alien abductees go through on a day-to-day basis.
The movie portrays a wonderful selection of those phenomena: missing time, people actually physically missing for periods that they cannot account for, the ability to dilate or shrink down time frames. Cases, maybe 2 or 3 cases of that actually being witnessed by the abductee, where friends and family in their vicinity, like statues frozen in time. One in particular, it didn't seem like they were frozen, but they were going in extremely slow motion while alien activity was going at normal pace as they got up and went on to the vessel or were just taken upon the vessel. And he covers that gamut very well. And I think that's important because not everyone has a bad experience. Not everyone has a positive experience. Sometimes it's extremely neutral, and 1 or 2 of those phenomena that actually do happen being in the film makes that connection and makes it easier to talk about and describe, even if he gets it completely wrong. That person will have the actual need to communicate their experience, to set the story straight in relation to them. And that's an important pressure. That's an important thing to, I guess, goad the audience into, especially where this film is concerned, because it has that mission.
Well, the reason people have had bad experiences is because there are some regenerate ETs out there. There's some that are very self-serving and they have their own agenda. When you talk about grays, it's a really gray area. You know, some are just little robots that do certain work on certain projects and things like that. And there's others that are used to abduct people and pick people up. And there's a lot of different things going on. So some people have been picked up by some forces that aren't so benevolent, and their fear and their reaction to the situation compounds things and makes things worse. But you know, some are just scientists, and they're here doing research. They want to see how much pollution is on the planet, how it's affecting us, the radiation, and how it's affecting our ability to procreate and things of that nature. So, and there's military groups that have aligned with ETs, you know, some less than benevolent ETs as well. And a trade was made there for technology. And they could actually abduct people and do experiments and create hybrids and things of that nature. So there's a lot of that going on. What I find is that some things are generational. They follow generations, and they've been doing it for a long time, and working with their energy and creating hybrids and with their DNA. And there's other ones that are just out of the blue. People will be in the wrong place at the right time or whatever, and they get caught up in something.
Even though Abductee is a work of fiction, it's rooted in reality. A lot of research was done to show that this is what abductees really go through. And it's PTSD in its truest sense. And there aren't support groups out there for them. People can't go out there and get help. They're treated as if they're imagining this, or if it's just them going crazy. Well, that's just not the case.
The psychology is, if it was fully explored, it would be no different than any other traumatic event that could happen to a person. It's just this one is, you know, not popular to believe in. And that adds to the isolation. And for post-traumatic stress, isolation is the problem. I mean, men and women who come back from war, seeing their friends and colleagues and people they know blown to pieces, and they have to come home to a regular 9-to-5 environment and not have any support or anyone to talk to about that kind of loss. Well, imagine, you know, saying to someone like that, or a veteran, oh, you didn't go overseas, none of that happened. That's what an abductee goes through. None of it's happening. And everyone around them are going to keep saying that because, one, either they don't want to accept it themselves, or two, it's too scary to think about. In a lot of cases, family and friends and veterans won't want to talk about their traumatic experiences either because they're too ugly. And this is an ugly thing that we need to face. And any case of post-traumatic stress or any case of repressed stressful events will destroy a psyche, and that is, you know, something that shouldn't fly.
We've had a lot of experience in doing counseling work and healing work with people that have had malevolent contacts or have been basically abused or had things done against their will. And, you know, that's pretty traumatic. When that comes up, it's pretty intense, you know, when they go through those emotions and clear those patterns. But when you get through that experience and heal that experience, there's other beings on the other side of that that are very benevolent, they're very powerful and very wise. And once you connect with those beings, you move to a whole new level, and the other ones just pretty much fall away. There's actually a protection that comes with working with the more benevolent and the more spiritually and technologically advanced beings.
Abductee isn't just a movie. It's meant to be an ongoing process with us researching more about aliens, about abductions, about UFOs. We've been to East Eddy Ranch, and James allowed us to go up there and film and get some footage during the nighttime. We've connected with James Smith, another expert in the field who has read the script and gave it his personal endorsement. We wanted to make it a point to connect with as many people as possible, and we're going to continue to do that throughout the campaign as we're filming the movie, as we're cutting the movie, behind the scenes footage, and distributing it. We want to get this out to as many people as possible, experts in the field, and get their take on it, get their opinions on it, and get their support.
I really agree that the movie respects the community, because it's not making those affected out to be complete and total fringe weirdos. I mean, my experience was, I was just a little kid, and I mean, I had a very short conversation that had no words to it. It's very, I mean, the only real way I could describe it was telepathy. And by the end of it, by the time I was home, I had figured out that I wanted to lead a life of service and not just, you know, doing menial things for people. I wanted to affect lives positively. And in that case, that was just my story. Other people who have to deal with isolation and terror, true terror of not being able to stop what is going, and they know it's going to happen, is something I wouldn't wish on another human being, whether I liked them or not. And the character in this film experiences that, and people experience this. It's like part of their lives more than quote-unquote normal. And I mean, it should be a testament to a real person's character that they handle this, handle it, and continue on. In the film, I think he's realistically portrayed as a regular person, especially a male person who has only one sibling for support. And it's respectful in my eyes. It does not, there's nothing outlandish about his characterization or anything he does. And even when he meets the other quote-unquote abductees that are a little, he reacts like a person would react. And that's what I liked about it. That was the greatest part of the film, I think, was him meeting a community that was so involved in itself, it couldn't help him. And he met someone who's an expert who could not help him because of the nature of what was happening. And that was, Not to feed anyone doom and gloom, but that is often the case, is they go from person to person and get nothing, yet they still manage to deal. And, you know, as far as the film's portrayal, I think it's dead on and very respectful. Anyone who has a problem with this would have to have an agenda of some kind that's not in line with getting this out in the open and discussed as a normal subject of, you know, stressful coping and traumatic stress.
I've always had a fascination about UFOs and aliens and things of that nature, but I knew that I really had to get a lot of research done for this movie. When I write, half of the time I spend writing is spent researching. So I made it a point to go out and try to get as much information as I possibly could. I consulted a local abductee so I could go over the treatment and the screenplay with him and get his take on it as I was writing it, so I could make sure that I was as accurate as possible and it was as grounded to reality as it possibly could be. And when he read the treatment, he actually kind of gave me a half chuckle and looked and said, "Have you ever been abducted?" And I was like, I don't even know if I want to find out. I've been experiencing sleep paralysis since I was a teenager. About every 4 to 6 months or so, I'd wake up in bed, couldn't move, utterly terrified. I mean, just the most horrifying experience I could ever have, I could ever feel. And I made it a point, whenever I woke up from that, to keep the light off. I didn't want it to conquer me. I wanted to conquer it. When I started working on Abductee, sleep paralysis went away completely. Started working on some other projects. Abductee went on the back burner, and my sleep paralysis came back. And that was a time where I experienced a figure sitting on the pillow staring at me. And that's when I knew that something was telling me I needed to make this movie happen. I needed to get it done.
I was one of those guys in college that really didn't know what the hell he was going to do. So he had so many different majors and minors. Psychology was one of them, especially stress and how stress affects the body and the mind. This is a stressful situation, especially if you have been taken against your will. And the idea of sleep paralysis, which is a major theme in the film. I mean, in Europe, it's called old hag syndrome, where people actually manifest or have seen an old hag sitting on their body and crushing them. But if you really look at the numbers of what's reported, there's only like 18 cases. And we have 1,800 cases new almost per year around the world of reported abduction. And I'm sure that number is going to go up as more people come forward.
Abductee is an important movie for me because it's a movie that connects the general public and the alien abduction community at large and what they go through. I feel like a lot of people are going to see this movie and come out and have questions. They're going to have a lot of questions they want to ask. And most people know somebody or have heard of somebody that have had experiences or seen a UFO, and they're going to start asking. And they're going to start asking from the perspective of, I want to know more, instead of just tell me a weird story or tell me a scary story. And you're going to have people in the abductee community who are going to come out and say, yeah, that's pretty close to what we deal with. A lot of that is very spot on. And they're going to drive them towards more information. And it's going to help two groups of people. One group who is experiencing all this stuff, another group who are non-believers but can have their eyes opened to this sort of stuff. And it's going to bring them both together. And I like the horror genre, the psychological thriller genre, because I feel like the people who view those movies are more open to things of this nature. They're more open to believing things like this. They want to believe things like this. They want to believe that there's something outside of just the daily norm. And they want to know about it. They actually want to try to get their information from it. And everything has a lot of great information. Ghost movies, stuff like that, have really good things that they can drive them into knowing more, except for alien abduction movies. There's just a dry spot of nothing there. And this is going to be that connecting point for them.
I think one of the biggest fallacies that people have is that they're expecting the government to tell them the truth about ETs when they've lied to them for over 60 years, and all of a sudden they're going to tell us the truth, you know, and they're not going to twist it in a way that that would benefit them. And so they lack the open-mindedness and the loving heart and the pure intent to have contact with the higher dimensional beings. So I'd say overall, I think it's interesting how we keep asking, you know, beings that don't have that impeccable integrity to advise us or tell us what's going on when we should really be doing our own research.
The community, the big community, the UFO community, it's like walking into the National Archives. There's subjects ranging from sightings to personal encounters to people's personal stories. Some of these people have an agenda to do what they do and just get it out there. That's probably the most positive thing. But as a person who's on the fence and is interested, or just, you know, finds the subject interesting, should probably very much follow that vibe. I can't guarantee you, or no one can guarantee you where that's going to lead. But the only compass needle we have in life is our interest. Those things that kind of, I don't want to say titillate, but sometimes excite or interest us are the only clues to what could lead to a very important, insurmountable phase in their life. People who want to see this movie should probably see it just because of the elements within it are as, I mean, pure as I've ever seen portrayed in any other film. Most films go straight into the, you know, poor human category, where we're picked on, terrified, and running around. And fear porn is nice. It gets us to, you know, whittle away the hours. But it isn't helping humanity in as much as those being abducted or those who suspect they're being abducted.
Kickstarter made sense for us because when you go the big studio route, the investor route, they come in, they meddle, and they try to find a way to make the most money as possible. They make a movie that you really don't want to see. Abductee is not that movie. We spent countless hours researching everything, working on the script, consulting with UFOologists, and they've come together and they've said that this is the most accurate representation of what abductees actually go through. Help us make the movie that needs to get made. Support our Kickstarter. Help us make the movie that you want to see.